Neeta, no FDC in June because we need a break. Really. Okay, awesome. So I'm thrilled to welcome Swati to this session. Swati Chopra has worked for more than two decades in journalism, in media, and publishing. She's at present an associate publisher nonfiction at HarperCollins India. So an associate publisher, many of us won't understand the hierarchy. Even I don't entirely understand the hierarchy, but I know it's quite high up on the food chain. So that's all we need to know. After you've been a commissioning editor and, menial things like that, I think is when you become a publisher. So she commissions, edits, and publishes nonfiction, including books on politics, history, investigative journalism, foreign policy, current affairs, amongst others. She's worked as a journalist and a writer before her career in publishing and is the author of 5 books, including the Dharamsala Diaries and Women Awakened. These books, but she was telling me just before we started that, the last book she wrote was like about 10, 12 years ago, Swati. Yeah. So she now is saying that, her writing career is it's almost like a second phase of her career that she is into as a publishing person more than a writer. So welcome and thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me, Chetan. And I really must apologize to everyone who joined last week when I couldn't join despite trying my best. So really sorry about that. And thank you for coming again and to hear me and to hear our discussion. And really, I'm here to also answer as many questions as you might have regarding publishing, because I think it's a lot of writers have been here to speak and will also in future. But here my perspective might be from somebody who is who works in publishing, and commissions and edits and publishes books. So you may have whatever questions you have, please let us know as we go ahead.
Great. So the first question, I gave the formal introduction. And it's kind of like your LinkedIn profile, but what do you actually do? So what does a commissioning editor, what does a associate publisher at HarperCollins actually do?
Okay, so pretty much, so what I continue to do what I used to do as a commissioning editor, which is essentially commissioning, editing, and publishing books. New books, new ideas, liaising with authors and so on. But I also now do have, the additional responsibility of looking at the list. So, every publisher, every mainstream trade publisher has a certain number of frontlist titles, what we call frontlist titles, which publish in any given calendar year. And for that, we create a list, across different divisions. So the literary division would have a list, the nonfiction division would have a list, there would be a business list, there would be a commercial list. So what I do essentially as associate publishers, I also look at and try and manage the nonfiction list, the general trade nonfiction list at HarperCollins. But as I said, I continue doing what I was doing, I have been doing as a commissioning editor and as an executive editor before, which is essentially commissioning books, across genres, working very closely with authors, developing ideas, and essentially giving feedback on writing, giving editorial support. And also another crucial aspect of our work, which a lot of people may not know, a lot of people who have not published may not know, is that we also help and we also oversee the marketing process. Okay. So though we have, so once the book goes to press, then that's when the marketing process starts. So a lot of us are deeply involved also in, because it's all interconnected, you see, the pitch, how are we taking the book to the market? And that's something that editorial is deeply concerned with, especially in today's times. So we work very closely with our colleagues in marketing and sales to refine the pitch of a book and to really, because we know editors know the books the best. Before a book is published, we know everything about the book and the authors. So we are also sort of providing a certain momentum to the beginning of the marketing conversation, and working closely with our colleagues in marketing. And of course, our marketing colleagues do carry the entire, they spearhead the marketing campaigns, but we are very much involved, especially in the beginning.
Okay, fascinating. That sounds like a lot of things. So, so to help me clarify a couple of things, because I'm sure people might be wondering. So when you say commissioning editor, is it a new book or is it necessarily a new author? Or it could be like a third book by an existing author?
It could be, yeah, both. So
okay.
it's a new book, and it's new books by authors you've published before.
Okay.
For example, I think you've had Akash and Tripurdaman at earlier. So I've published both their earlier books. I was at Penguin at that time, so I had published Tripurdaman's 16 Stormy Days there, and at HarperCollins I've published his book on Nehru, which he co-authored with Adil. And same with Akash, I published his book Ambedkar's Preamble at Penguin, and I've done his. I'm doing his
Becoming Babasaheb.
Becoming Babasaheb, which is, it's actually a 2-volume Ambedkar biography. So the second volume would come out next year. So there are several authors like that. And we sit down and we discuss, and we a lot of times we look at ideas together, or authors come to me and to us and talk about forthcoming ideas. So it's both, to answer your question.
We'll come back. Great, thank you. So we'll come back to what it means for a first-time author, because I want to spend a little time on that. But I had there's a lot of this jargon that flies around. It'll help me understand. So a front list is a set of books which sell repeatedly year on year, like 7 Habits of Stephen Covey, and which you will intend to print in any case. Is that what a front list is?
No. So a front list essentially are the books that are publishing for the first time in a calendar year.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, if a book is published, let's say in March 2023, it will stay a front list till the end of that year. The next year onwards, it will become backlist.
Okay. So my Stephen Covey example is actually backlist.
It's actually a backlist title that keeps a lot of the titles that sell very well in India are backlist titles for all publishers. Like Ikigai is a backlist title. Most of Paulo Coelho's, I mean, when he has a new book out, then that's a front list. But The Alchemist and so many of his titles are backlist titles. So a lot of Sudha Murthy's entire list is backlist, unless she comes up with a new book. So that's.
So I'm going to ask you.
Titles sell very well. Yeah.
Okay. So I see a question. Just hold your questions for another 15 minutes, and then we'll take them. I'm hoping that a lot of them might get answered in the conversation. Yeah. So I don't know if this is a sensitive question, but what percentage of a publisher's revenue comes from first-time authors? Matlab, how much do we matter year on year? That's what we're trying to understand.
It depends. It depends, Chetan. Because a lot of times, like especially in nonfiction, which is what I work with, a lot of first-time authors, it may be their first book, but they may be, subject matter experts. They might have spent, their entire lives, working on a particular subject, and then they write their first book. So they're first-time authors, but they have a wealth of experience. A very good example is Dr. Jayashankar's The India Way, which is a huge bestseller for us. It's his first book, but he's external affairs minister, and he's worked in diplomacy all his life, all his professional life. So I think I don't think you can really box. I mean, I don't think we can really talk percentages here, because there are nuances to this. Nuances.
All right. Yeah. All right. Okay. So coming back to our, earlier the questions that I had shared with you. So there's a lot of people who write what they want, and then there are people, like, who are not looking at what will get published easily, but people who write because it means something to them or something they feel deeply about. And then there is a few who are looking at what's hot in the market and try and follow the trend. So when you get a manuscript, I mean, can you tell? I mean, do you even care? I mean, as long as so how do you? What's your view on that?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Do you mean to say, like, how much does the pitch matter to the way that a proposal is written?
No, what I meant was that some people are following a trend. Okay,
Yes.
so let's say everybody is writing about leadership, but everybody is writing about creativity or management.
Yeah.
So you try and create a small niche within that, or carve out, try and do something very specific in particular, and then you have people who are doing something that they care deeply about, and they don't really care about how many copies they sell or will it get published or not. So the examples you mentioned, guys like Tripur Daman and Akash, they're writing what they feel passionate about, what they feel deeply about. So does that matter? I mean,
of course.
is either wrong?
Okay. No. Of course, no. Yeah. So passion matters, I think, hugely. And the reason is writing a book is not is actually, it requires a lot of hard work, as a lot of our colleagues here might would agree that it's writing a book, whether it's nonfiction, fiction, whatever. It is so much hard work. It's so much time spent away from the rest of your life or whatever, that I think it's very difficult to do it unless there is a lot of passion for the subject, for the book, that the author is bringing to the table. So I would absolutely look at what really matters to an author, when what really they're passionate about when we are discussing ideas. Also because it's human tendency that we tend to give a lot of we do something very well when we are very passionate about it. Also, I think another aspect, especially for nonfiction here, is that how well do you know your subject? So somebody like Akash, who spent his a large part of his career researching Ambedkar, he knows Ambedkar very well. He knows all about the sources that he needs to go to. He knows which sources he needs to question and interrogate. And what are the subjects what are the aspects of Ambedkar that he wants to talk more about that have not been covered earlier? So things like that. So absolutely, passion would be right on top, along with a very good and deep grasp of the subject.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So just so you remember, folks, we are meeting Dr. Rathore, or AKA Akash, tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So that session is on tomorrow at 5. He's a pretty scary guy because he's an academic, he's a philosopher, and he's a competitive triathlete. So, that's one of my questions for him tomorrow. So, academics are supposed to be absent-minded professors. Philosophers are supposed to be like, stuck in the universe. And then you're this triathlete suddenly. So
I shouldn't talk more about Akash in this because everyone's going to see him tomorrow. So,
yeah. But again, like, we are first-time authors and we come to you and we, pitch a book to you. Are there some like absolute no-nos? Is there something that you've seen in a first-time script that really bugged you and you like just kind of dropped it right there? Tell us what those things are first.
No, I think Chetan, because I've been on the other side of the fence. I've been an author. I've written, I have queried a lot of publishers in my life. So I tend not to take anything, in a very sort of negative way, because I know that authors are, when they're querying a publisher, they're coming at it from. It takes a lot of courage to query a publisher. It takes a lot of courage to put your work out there. So I respect that. I have a deep respect for all authors. Whether we publish their book or not, that's a different matter. That's a different conversation. So I have a lot of respect for authors who are reaching that point where they want to share their work with a publisher. What I would suggest is that everybody, and I think these resources are now very widely available on the internet, is that there are ways in which the proposal should be, the information that we seek from a proposal.
Yeah.
For example, and I'm sure this group already knows, so tell me if I'm going into too much detail that is not needed.
No.
Yeah, but things like, a synopsis, a well-written, good synopsis that in a few paragraphs or in a couple of pages tells, the person looking at it what exactly the book is about. It needs to be, non-flowery, completely direct, to the point, giving all the, salient features and the USPs of the book. And alongside, a chapterization, which is a list of chapters with brief descriptions of each chapter, because this helps us understand, what is the scope of the book? Where does the book start? What is it going to talk about? Where does it end? Also, if you have a couple of sample chapters, it always helps, because we are always looking for the quality of writing that is going to be in the book. And that's, of course, very, very important. So that helps. And also a very good bio of yours, and a bio that is pertinent to the subject at hand. So if you're pitching a particular biography and you've done a lot of work about that person, or you're pitching about a certain subject that you have a lot of expertise on, focus on why you're the best person to be writing that, so that your bio contains that. And a timeline also should be included in this proposal, which helps us know that, okay, by this time, tentatively, the book will be done. And usually this is really for nonfiction, because fiction usually, authors send out once they've finished writing. But nonfiction, a lot of times we do acquire on the basis of a couple of chapters or 2 or 3, or the strength of the idea. So do please include a timeline to it. And, that's, these are the features. And also a tentative word count. You may not have the actual word count at that point, but you would know, like if you're given to writing, chapters that are 5,000 or 8,000 words each, and if you're going to write 10 such chapters, you would know tentatively that the book would be about 60 to 80,000 words. So, these things, because these help us in our preliminary conversations. I don't know if you want to discuss like how decisions are made to commission, because it's not really in one person's hand. So
I'm sure there's lots of questions around. Look at the smiles on the people's faces. Please tell us.
Yeah, I feel I'm just yakking and nobody's in a word in edgeways, including you. So just raise your hand if you want me to stop. But yeah, so the reason that all this information is required is because of the process that we go through, which is essentially that so if I am the person that's receiving the proposal, I'm not the decider. I'm not the sole decider. I'm the person who says, yes, this is good enough. Let me pitch this to the company. And we have periodic acquisitions meetings, which is when the entire company gets together, the CEO downwards. And there are members from the marketing team, from the sales team, which is very important, their participation, and of course, editorial, and everyone gets together. And we have a list of proposals that we discuss. And each editor comes on and talks about that particular proposal and why we should publish that book. And the more information I have at that point, I will be able to share with my colleagues and respond to their questions. This is also the meeting where we decide which is the best format for the book, what is the best, print run, first print run, what is the best price point. All these are very important things for us are discussed in that meeting. So this is why the proposal needs to have as much information as possible.
Now, it was interesting. So this, we talk a lot about literary agents, and they're kind of, some of us think they're demigods, some of us think they're frauds, depending on who they've been talking to. But how does the industry view them? I mean, I'm sure it's going to be in a positive light, because I met these guys and they're mostly rock stars. They're very credible and solid professional people. But where do they fit into this whole framework?
Yes. So, as you said, I mean, we work closely with a lot of literary agents as well. The thing is that where the Indian publishing scene differs from other parts of the world is that in several other countries, especially US, UK, etc., and you already know this, is that they will only work with agents.
Yeah.
So you cannot just send your proposal and expect it to be considered at all. They will only accept proposals that are agented. That is not the case in India. We work as much on, certainly, I mean, somebody like me, I have worked a lot with authors, first-time authors, directly than, at least initially with agents. But usually for most of us, we work very closely with agents as well.
Okay, great. So 2 questions, folks, and then I'm going to open it up to all of yours, because I can already see lots of questions coming in. And there was this very cute comment when you said that I'm speaking too much. Somebody had written saying we're taking notes.
Okay.
So you're not, what you're saying is very relevant.
Okay.
The first question was, and I get this all the time, and I've never been inside the industry, right? I'm this outsider, just like everybody else here. So I get asked this question all the time, saying, when you submit something, does anyone actually read it?
Yes.
Like when you actually send an email to Penguin or to HarperCollins or, Rupa, does somebody actually read it, or is it just lying there for 6 months?
So, Chetan, we have something called the slush pile.
Yes.
So the emails that go, the proposals that go to the email ID that's on the website of any publisher goes to the slush pile, and we all do take turns to read the slush pile.
Okay.
It may not happen immediately. It may take a few weeks or a couple of months, but those are read.
Okay.
It's better chances to send it directly to editors, and because then it just lands on their inbox, and they will, I certainly read everything that's sent to me personally. This is not to say that we don't read what is sent to the the company email ID. We do, and I do know that other publishers do as well. Okay. So
but that was interesting that you said that send it directly to an editor. Now, I won't know who is the right editor in HarperCollins that I should send it to. So is that where a literary agent then is of use? I mean,
yes,
because they would know. They are mostly insiders.
Yeah. Yes, the agent would know which editor in which company to send it to. The agent would also send it to multiple editors. In the sense that they might know people at various companies that they'll send it to. So here also, it's sometimes it's a bit nuanced, because they may think that it's a very good fit for a particular editor's list, and they'll only send it to that person, and that person might preempt or just go forward with it. So so these are all conversations that I think every individual author should have with their agents. And it's something to discuss with them.
Okay, cool. So my last question was really about, you're now on the publishing side. So was there, when you were a writer, were you also in publishing when you were a writer, or no?
No.
Okay. So tell us about, so you've been on our side, right? You've been in this seat that we're sitting in.
Yes.
So tell us about that experience. Maybe that's what makes you very empathetic, editor, unlike other.
I wouldn't say that, Chetan.
Okay, well, we can hope.
Don't get me in trouble with my colleagues. Okay. I wouldn't say that.
Tell us about that journey. Tell us about, how you switched from writing to editing, or being an editor. Yeah.
Okay. This really goes back to the beginning of my career. I really, growing up, of course, as all of us, I'm sure, great readers, all of that. And I did English literature in college, so that really, made me very interested in the whole business of reading, writing, publishing, etc. I did sort of at that point consider a career in publishing, but I was a bit put off, and the media seemed like very interesting and exciting at that point. So I got into journalism, and one thing led to another, and that's when my writing career started. I wrote a few books, and my last book was published in 2011. So I switched to publishing after that, a couple of years after that. My experience as a writer was absolutely, I think that those were some of the most creative years of my life. Because I, at that point, most of my books, in fact, all my books were written, on spirituality and related topics. And my whole concern at that point was to bring a certain amount of intellectual querying and a certain amount of philosophical querying to Indic wisdom traditions. Even a journalistic query to a lot of, spiritual traditions, and to sort of bring out, certain aspects and things about them that were usually not talked about. Because, in India, spirituality is mostly something that you receive from the outside and you do not question it enough. So I was, through my books, trying to bring out questions that seekers have or people on the path have. And my book, Women Awakened, which you mentioned, was very much about gender and spirituality and religious traditions and so on. So these were all books that I had deeply researched and had the fortune of interviewing a lot of very interesting people. And I think all those experiences have enriched me very greatly as a human being, more than anything else.
That was helpful. So now I'm going to open it out and I'm going to read out some of the questions that we've got. We already have like 15 of them. So if you can, if it's a one-word answer, go ahead with the one-word answer. Don't, you're an editor, so that's allowed. So the first one is, if a book is published in December, will it be frontlist only for a month, or it will be for the published year, or is it the financial year? This is from Vaibhav. Yeah.
Yeah. Vaibhav, so different. So here's where we get into a bit of technical stuff, because different companies have different publishing years. So for example, for HarperCollins, it's a July to June year. Because we're following what our parent companies do.
Right.
For Penguin, it is a January to December year. In the Indian system, March is the end of the financial year. So there are different aspects to it. But essentially, we largely follow the calendar year.
Okay. All right, cool. Next one is, what are the most common or top reasons for rejection of a book? And what are the things that make a book a winner? Is a book even accepted without any feedback? Ever, I would say, accepted without any feedback or changes?
So the first part of the question is the reason for rejecting a book. I think there are many reasons. So it depends, again, for just as they are for accepting or for publishing a book. So it is case by case. But I think quality of writing, and in terms of nonfiction, it is also the quality of knowledge about that subject. For example, if I'm going to write a book on meditation, then am I qualified enough to write that book on meditation? And if I'm just a beginner, then my book should really be a beginner's guide to meditation and not what a master would write. So things like that.
Sure.
And sorry, what was the second part?
The second part was, is a book ever accepted without any feedback or changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the time. By changes, if you mean edits, I mean, we always edit books. So your book will always be edited. Feedback, we usually give feedback because we get feedback when we discuss, books at acquisitions. So, from the title to the, pitch to the, the way the I mean, for example, when I get, a manuscript, this is after we've signed something on, I always give a certain amount of primary editing feedback, which has to do with flow, content, generally how the book is reading, things like that. So feedback is something you'll always get, at every stage. Also for nonfiction, legal reads are very important. So all our nonfiction goes for a legal read, and there'll be some which goes to external legal counsel. So
Right.
there will be feedback that we get from them as well that we factor in.
Okay, great. This is a slightly open-ended question. Any do's and don'ts for co-authoring a book? Personally, I'm going to take a minute. I tried to co-author a book with my wife. My wife threw me out of the project. Best decision ever. Now, your turn.
I've actually published a fair number of co-authored books. And I think what really matters is, the kind of relationship between the two authors or two or three authors. Because essentially, they need to figure out how to divide, their time and their how they're actually going to work. Some divide their work as in you write X number of chapters, I write X number of chapters. Some divide their work as in I'll do X number of interviews, you do X number of interviews, and then we, sort of weave everything together. So, so there is so all of this, it goes smoothly only when, the two authors have a lot of, personal, their personal equation and their personal chemistry works well. And I've done some very fantastic, very successful co-authored books. So it's something to consider, definitely. But only if, if both the authors are on the same page about everything.
Sorry, did you get cut there? The sound stopped suddenly. Did everybody get the answer completely? Yeah, okay, all right. Must have been something at my end. All right. Next question was, how far along are first-time authors with the books when pitching it to you? Is it commissioned at the idea stage or but with an outline, or when most chapters are done?
Okay, so like I did mention this, but I'll just say it again. Is that for nonfiction, especially we do work with not a full manuscript. So we do work with a very well-fleshed idea of the book, which includes the chapters and which includes descriptions of chapters and a couple of sample chapters as well. So for nonfiction, no, doesn't need to be the full manuscript, though I must say that it's always a positive for the publisher if the full manuscript is available.
Yeah, I've heard that, in fact. Yeah. Okay, any advice for first-time fiction authors? That's a very open question, but you've been there, I guess.
Fiction.
Yes, that's what they're
First-time fiction. So I don't work in fiction. So having said that, I would say that what I can say is that I think for fiction, especially, I think get a lot of feedback, from readers, from people that you give your book to read. I think it would be helpful if you could, share your manuscript with a lot of readers, the kinds of readers that you hope will pick up the book. So, you'll get feedback on characters and plot points and how the story is moving. So if I were to write fiction, that's what I would do before I send it on. So you might get a lot of feedback that will be very helpful. And certainly, if you can get somebody who does write fiction and who is a fiction author and who has been published, for them to read your manuscript and give you feedback, that might be very helpful. So I think there are some residencies, Chetan, I don't know if you're also working towards that, where published authors, especially for fiction, do read manuscripts and give feedback. So I think that exercise is very, it helps a lot of authors?
We have a sort of, well, it's not a residency, but we have Jerry Pinto coming in. You might remember that. He's coming in September. And on the last day, he's doing one-on-one sessions with authors. He's not reading entire manuscripts, but he's going to read 5,000 words and give you feedback. So sort of like what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that I think is very helpful. So that's what I would do if I were to write fiction.
Next question. Do you believe that authors need to have a hands-on approach to market their books, or let that be publishing house responsibility?
I think certainly in today's day and age, both need to be very, very, very involved in marketing. Because, we're at a point where, especially post COVID, a lot of, buying and marketing both have moved online. Of course, now events are happening, Litfests are back, all of that will keep happening. But we all have discovered a lot more avenues to market books online. Just for example, I mean, this session is not about marketing, but we are here online and we're talking about, certain things.
Yeah.
So a lot of so readers, new avenues have opened up to readers and authors to connect with each other, and I think marketing, especially, has become the sky is the limit, in terms of marketing the book now, because there's so much that can happen online. There's so much that authors can do, and of course publishers do put pitch in as well. But I think engagement with authors is key. For engagement with readers is key where authors are concerned, and they must, keep finding new ways, whether it's social media or online platforms or other communities, to do that. For publishers as well, I mean, all these have opened up, new avenues for marketing, and they do need to work together and work together in a way that is, that sort of go in an organic way that complements each other.
So the session on the 4th is with a gentleman called Ayush Pant. Ayush has been pushing Ira Trivedi's books. Ira Trivedi is also a HarperCollins author, Karan Bajaj's book. So he's a digital marketer specializing in book marketing. So that's next Sunday. And the next question here was, where can we find a list of authentic literary agents? You can find it on this website called www.himalayanwritingretreat.com. I've just put the list in the WhatsApp group. Okay. Next question, which is related. So I'm going to jump a question. Which agents do you work with? Do you prefer manuscripts pitched by agents?
I think, I've already answered this, but I'll say it again, is that all agents who query us, we work closely, and mostly, I mean, there are not that many agents in India. So we usually tend to work, we've all worked with most of them. And sorry, the second part of the question was?
Do you prefer manuscripts pitched by agents?
And as I said, in India, we work with authors directly as well, and we work with agents as well. So there is no, I think the strength of the idea and the strength of the manuscript and the author's passion, these are all things that matter the most, whether it is agented or direct submission.
The next question is a very cute one. It says, what is the success rate with slush piles? Are there any kamals in the kitchen?
I'm sorry, I have to use this term slush pile. I mean, that's just publishing, publishing lingo. So
it's been around for like 100 years plus.
I think. So don't mean to denigrate the slush pile at all. We take it very seriously. I think sometimes, yes, I do know of some books that we have published that have come from a direct submission. Also, a lot of authors, tend to do both. They tend to send to editors as well as to the slush pile. So a lot of times we find the same submissions that we have already looked at because they landed with us directly. So there is a fair amount of duplication on that in terms of the submissions.
Okay. Who's your ideal author? And any tips on how authors can help during the publishing journey?
Oh, the authors, I mean, the authors are entirely the center of our universe in publishing, it's they do everything. So Whenever we edit anything, I mean, we are constantly talking to our authors, about the books. We are constantly in touch. Everything that we do on a manuscript, whether it's to give feedback or to copy edit or anything, everything is in track changes. So authors, get to see every suggestion that we have, every edit that we make. So authors have to like constantly be. It's authors are the ones that are driving this boat. I mean, we are providing editing, we are providing, ways in which to make the book more readable or more credible or stronger in any way, but authors are at the center of the entire exercise. So they are actually involved in everything.
Right. Great. The next question is actually quite a good one. What is the best time to approach an author? You've already answered that in terms of when the whole manuscript is ready or when you are halfway done. But the question is so that you can get early feedback on the process itself. So if you see, say, 2 chapters or 5 chapters, do you actually give feedback or do you say, send us the whole thing, then we'll talk?
So, like I mentioned, that if it is a book that is, we can get a fair idea of what this book is about from the chapterization and the sample chapters, we go ahead with that. However, if it is a book that we feel we don't really know how this is going to develop, then we do ask for the full manuscript. So both things happen, but so that's why I said it's always best to have the entire manuscript. But that does not mean that we do not talk to authors when it's just a couple of chapters.
Right. Next question. Are there any subjects in particular that are preferred for commissioning currently?
I think we publish everything. It's not as if we are publishing very heavily just in one genre, but certainly, I mean, political biographies, for example, will always be interesting. I mean, especially political biographies that are authorized. Or any kind of authorized biographies. They will always be in demand. Publishers would want to publish an authorized biography. Then, I mean, I think when, for example, when Ikigai became such a big hit, I think there were a lot of similar books that were talked about and that were published, that were about, and certainly during the pandemic and right after, there were a lot of mind, body, spirit books that became very, that sort of were selling very well because everybody wanted a break, from the gloom and doom of the pandemic. So there are times when certain things trend in publishing, but I think a good book is a good book.
Sure, great, thanks. Kamaldeep has a question saying word of mouth is very important for making a book hit. So any suggestions on what contributes to that for a first-time author?
I think social media these days is the word of mouth of our times. It's, who is talking about your book, who's tweeting about your book, who's Instagramming about your book. I think Instagram's still a little less, but certainly Twitter. I mean, we've seen Amazon rankings of books go up exponentially if somebody with a huge Twitter following tweets about it. So of a relevant Twitter following. So if it is, a politician tweeting about a political book, it's sort of the Amazon rankings go up. So that's I think social media engagement is very important for authors today, even if they don't themselves have, but they do need to be able to reach out to influencers on social media, which I mean, I'm not saying that we base our decisions. I mean, these are just marketing conversations that we have.
Sure.
And of course, a book needs to be a strong book, but in terms of word of mouth, I think that's social media is what our word of mouth is, I mean, for today.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of people don't like that answer, but it is what it is. I know. I'm not saying you're making it, but that's the reality.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to skip Akanksha's question and maybe come back to it later because the next one's very interesting and that's a shorter answer. What are your favorite books, and what books do you recommend for improving writing?
It depends on which genre you're talking about. For example, I wouldn't recommend a mind, body, spirit book to somebody who wants to write a biography, or an investigative book for somebody who would want to write, in a different genre. So it's really genre specific. So if the person who's asked me this question wants to ask me about a particular genre, then I can think about it. But in general, I think from Indian authors, for example, if you're looking at biographies, I think Half Lion is one of the best written biographies that I've read. This is Narasimha Rao's biography. Certainly in the, and here I'm a little biased, but in the whole military history space, the India's Most Fearless series, I think those are very well written. They're very well marketed. In full disclosure mode, I did the first two books. I set up that series when I was at Penguin. So, I have, but I think those are very well done. And the series continues. So is there a particular genre that this person wants me to?
I would assume it would be about nonfiction.
Yeah.
Would you mind if I take a stab at this?
Yeah.
Okay, because I do this for a living. So for fiction, read Bird by Bird, read The Artist Way. You should read Self-Editing for Fiction Writers. These three books will cover a lot of ground. If you're reading nonfiction, read On Writing Well by William Zinsser. Definitely. We are coming up with a book called The Indian Writer's Handbook, for which it's not gone to a publisher yet, but I have an agent who signed up with me. So that's 6-8 months away. It will be a good book on how to improve your writing. Then we're going to move to the next one. That's a nice question too. How dynamic should your cover letter be? And can it be funny and engaging, or should it be just bare-bone facts, like a formal, stiff, tie-clad person or somebody in shorts?
Please don't be funny. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. It's like you're sending out your resume to somebody to look at in a company or something. Sorry, a lot of times you don't know what that person, where that person is that morning, and you just want to be you want to come off as direct as possible. So just be respectful, be polite, and just lay it out there. And you can be funny when you become friends with your editor.
Okay,
which happens
That's
a
good
lot.
advice. That's good advice. That's a good question too. So we take 2 more questions and then we will start talking about word count, guys. If you haven't updated your word count, now is a good time. The last 2 questions, because we have too many, so we can't fit all of them. Yes, that's a good suggestion. On Writing by Stephen King is also very good. I will share the book recommendations on WhatsApp, Nina. Yes, I will. How many pages for a synopsis, Kamal is asking. And the other question, we sort of know the answer to, is what sells more in India, fiction or non-fiction?
So how many pages? I usually, whenever authors ask me how many pages should I send, I always say send as much or as little as you feel would be needed to fully explicate this idea. Because we read, I mean, we're happy to read the full manuscript as well. So don't think that this will be too long. I mean, this is one place where you can take, don't be verbose, obviously, but if you do need to take a little more space to, explicate your idea, what's important is that we get a full sense, or as full a sense as possible of the book. Okay. And yeah, and so that's that.
And this is a tricky question, so you can decide to say you pass. But the other question was, what sells more in India, fiction or non-fiction?
Decidedly non-fiction.
By a pretty big margin, I'm told. They don't have the data.
And it is. I think it's. I'm not giving away any trade secrets or some secret information, because this is. It's well known that fiction sells, even literary fiction, apart from the the big names in literary fiction, fiction tends to not sell that much.
Okay.
Commercial fiction does sell a lot. And by commercial fiction, we mean Chetan Bhagat, Ravinder Singh, Amish, Ashwin Sanghi, these fiction writers. So if you do reach a certain point where you hit upon an idea that is commercial fiction and that sells 100,000 copies, then there are those examples as well. So I would not say that fiction does not sell at all, because it does. Big literary fiction also sells a lot. But of course, certainly Booker Prize winners also sell a lot. So there are all these, ways in which fiction does sell. But overall, if you see on an average, nonfiction tends to sell more than fiction.
Right. Jaideep, you've posted about why this is so. I don't know if we have the time to get into that conversation. The reality is sort of like a given. It's a market thing. So it will be anybody's best guess in any case. I don't know if there's any hard specific, and these are cycles. Sometimes fiction will go up and then non-fiction will go down and then it'll go back again. Maybe it's
Chetan,
about,
sorry to cut you, but I have a theory which may be completely wrong. But
okay.
What I have noticed is, and this is my personal this thing, is that during the pandemic, say book sales went up, as you know. But what also happened that a lot of us got into watching OTT, Netflix, etc. So I think that a lot of people are now getting their fiction fix. The fix,
nice.
The story fix. We all as human beings, we've been telling stories for a very long time. But now it's so easily available and interesting, good stuff, which the channels were earlier not giving us. That I think that may have cut into fiction sales, because earlier, what you would curl up with a book before you went to sleep, but now you just watch an episode or two on an OTT platform. So I think there might be some, but that's a correlation for better minds.
That's an interesting theory, actually, very interesting. In fact, I know, this lady, Vinita, who we also had on the show, she said she stopped writing. She's a script writer. She said she stopped writing when Saas Bahu came along. She said, I just wouldn't do that. So when Saas Bahu came along, I guess those who had, who weren't up for it would go and read books for their fiction fix. So that was interesting. All right, cool. So there is this one last question, and it's a compelling question. People dislike authors having to do social media. So Zahara's question, and there's a follow-up for that, is if you're not really active on social media and do not wish to be, would the publisher insist that you have to be active for the sake of marketing or the book? Are there instances where marketing without the author's active social media handle has done successfully?
Yes, of course. I think social media is always a cherry on top. It's not the entire sundae or the entire cake, because it can't be, for the simple reason that, authors, writers, creative people, whether they are on social media or they're not on social media, they will continue to create, and we will continue to support their creativity and publish them and so on. Where social media matters a lot is, as I said, if you're on social media, for example, the way social media works, and a lot of us know this, is that if you're on social media and you have 100 followers, doesn't matter if you're there or not. Your 100 followers will probably are people who know you and will any case buy your book. But what matters is if you're on social media and if you have 100,000 followers. So, I don't, so therefore, it's not possible for us to sort of tell authors, oh, you have to be on social media to, push your book, because it doesn't matter if you have a very low volume of followers, and that's something that you can't really have overnight. So,
that's
so
great
I think
to know. That's great to know.
Yeah, and I think we published A.S. Dulat's book, Life in the Shadows, former Raw Chief. He's not on any social media and barely does WhatsApp either. His book is a bestseller. All his books have been bestsellers. So, I'm not saying that you're either Mr. Dulat or you're, 100,000 followers, but I'm just giving you an example that, there are books that are so strong and where the author is nowhere on social media.
Yeah, firstly, Chetan, thank you so much, and to Swati for this, for today's talk. That's extremely helpful. Gives so much of perspective. We've been only looking at our screens, white screens and black letters, but what happens after that was a refreshing knowledge to have. Thank you very much for organizing this. And second, Chetan, I think what this has helped, this FDC has helped is instilling a sense of discipline, sitting out there every morning at a designated time, sit there and write. We will not look at the quality of whatever has been written, but then that discipline of waking up and writing, putting thoughts into words is something that I think is helpful for the long term. And therefore, Chetan, a deep sense of gratitude for today's special. I think this is one of the finest one that we've had. Thank you so much, Swati, if she's still here.
Yes, she's still here, and thank you so much. Appreciate that. Any questions? I appreciate the gratitude, and we'll convey the comments on.
I have a follow-up question. Swati was asking me about the kind of books, the genre on how to write. How to write if the genre is history or historical fiction? What is the right approach to write a history book? Has it have to have anecdotal evidences as references for every line that is written? Or should there be a literary flow to it so that it becomes readable? Or should it sound very erudite so that it stands scrutiny from all angles? What is the best approach?
So if I may, we do have Akash tomorrow. So you
Yes.
have that, so we can repeat the question tomorrow, but now I'll let Swati take it.
Yeah, no, just to say that, if you're writing historical fiction, then it's up to you to, do the kind of research and fictionalize your research. But I would like to say that, in a country like India, where everybody takes offense, on everything, your research really needs to be very solid and very, on point. As far as regular history is concerned, usually, it's either historians, if you're a qualified historian, so you'd know then how to cite sources, what kind of primary, secondary, etc. sources you need for your book. And if you're somebody who has sort of done a lot of research, you may not be a qualified historian, but if you've researched a topic for 20 years, 30 years, then you also de facto become a historian. So I think it all boils down to the kind of research that you do and the kind of, sources that you have at your disposal.
All right, great. Well, we've run over our time, and we're very respectful of people's times on Saturday evenings. So, including yours, Swati. So thank you again for making time out on a Saturday evening for us. And I'd love to meet in person. So whenever I'm in the NCR next, I'd definitely reach out to you.
Yes.
And thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming in. And we will meet again. Yeah.
Yes.
And we'll meet tomorrow at 5 o'clock for everyone else. If you want to join and chat with Akash, feel free to join us again tomorrow.
I think I've chatted with him enough, but
he might be subdued in your presence.
He may not want his editor to appear, and start chatting. So.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Swati, thanks. I just wanted to say that I've really enjoyed your book. I just went and sort of grabbed it, and I thought I'd just share this with you.
Thank you.
It was, there was a couple of them who I really wanted to read about, and that's the reason I picked it up, but I really enjoyed all of them.
Thank you, Akanksha. Thank you very much. Nothing that gladdens an author's heart more than being read, as we all know here.
Absolutely.
I wish this was in person. I could have got my copy signed.
You're welcome to the HarperCollins office at Cyber City. Anytime. You have my email ID. Just let me know and come and drop in. We'll have coffee together.
Thank you. That's so gracious of you.
All right.
Okay.
Folks,
thank you. Bye.
Bye.